My mom slammed the door in my face and shouted, "We're not funding this circus, Grace. The wedding's off." That sentence shattered everything. I stood there, holding my white dress like it was the last piece of my dream, while my mom's voice echoed through the house, filled with disgust. I never thought my own family would humiliate me like that, just because I didn't marry into money. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe for more shocking real-life stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I still remember that moment like it happened yesterday. My dad didn't say a word. He just stood behind her, arms crossed, his silence louder than her insults. My fiancé, Daniel, tried to speak, but she cut him off. "You can't even afford the venue. What are you two thinking? Love doesn't pay the bills, Grace?" Her words hit harder than any slap. My heart broke, not just because she canceled my wedding, but because she said it like I was some foolish child chasing a fantasy. She called my relationship embarrassing. She called me a disappointment. Daniel squeezed my hand and whispered, "We'll find another way." But when I looked around, my family wasn't just disappointed, they were smirking. My sister, Ava, the one who had a lavish wedding fully funded by my parents, leaned against the doorway with that smug smile. "Guess love isn't enough after all," she said. That night, I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by half-packed boxes and unpaid bills. Daniel was quiet. I could tell he was scared, not of the wedding, but of me giving up. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to beg for their approval. If they thought I was beneath them, fine. They'd see soon enough what a circus I could build on my own. Because that night, I made a silent promise. I'd host a wedding so grand, so unforgettable, that my mom would wish she'd never spoken those words. But what I didn't know was that my own family was secretly planning to ruin it again. A week later, I walked into my mom's house with the wedding invitation in my hand. Gold edges, white roses, and my name printed boldly across the top. She looked at it, then at me, her face twisted in disbelief. "You hosting a wedding? With what money, Grace?" I smiled softly. "Don't worry, Mom. You won't have to fund this circus." Her jaw tightened. My dad chuckled under his breath, muttering, "Probably at some cheap backyard or diner." And Ava laughed, that same fake, sharp laugh that always made me feel 10 inches tall. "Make sure you get paper plates," she sneered. They had no idea. None. Daniel and I had spent sleepless nights working. I took extra shifts, sold jewelry, even rented out my small studio for events. But what truly saved us was an online business I'd secretly started 2 years ago, one that had quietly taken off. I hadn't told anyone, not even Daniel, because I wanted it to be mine, my escape, my backup plan. When I checked my account before ordering the wedding venue, I almost cried, 6 figures staring back at me. Every sleepless night, every insult, every "you'll never make it," had turned into proof that I could stand on my own. I booked one of the most beautiful private gardens in the city. String lights, a live band, fresh orchids, everything my mom said I'd never afford. But here's where things turned dark. The moment Ava found out about the location, she accidentally sent the wrong address to half our guests. My mom claimed it was a misunderstanding, but I saw the satisfaction in her eyes when I confronted her. "Grace, maybe you should have asked for help if you can't handle it," she said sweetly. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. "Oh, don't worry, Mom. The real show hasn't even started." Because what they didn't know was that I'd already planned everything. Every insult, every trick, I was one step ahead, and the day of the wedding was going to change everything. The morning of my wedding, the sky looked like it was painted just for me. Golden sun, soft breeze, and a calm that didn't match the storm inside my heart. I slipped into my dress, the same one my mom had called cheap-looking, but under the sunlight, it shimmered like liquid pearls. Daniel looked at me with quiet pride, whispering, "They'll eat their words today." The guests began arriving, confused but mesmerized. The venue wasn't a backyard or a diner. It was the Rosewood Garden Estate, one of the most expensive wedding venues in the state. Waiters carried crystal glasses, A live violinist played near the fountain, and white doves fluttered above the altar. Ava and my mom walked in, their smiles fading instantly. My mom froze, scanning the marble floors and chandeliers. "Grace, how did you afford this?" she asked, her voice trembling between shock and irritation. I smiled politely. "You said love doesn't pay the bills, remember? So, I found something that does. But even in that perfect moment I saw it, the same jealousy that had always poisoned my family." My mom leaned over to Ava, whispering something I couldn't hear. Ava's lips curled into a grin, and I knew they were plotting something. Halfway through the ceremony, chaos began. The sound system cut out. The catering truck got lost. Then one of the waiters came rushing to me and whispered, "Ma'am, someone canceled the payment for the venue." They said the card was stolen. My heart stopped. I felt the blood drain from my face. When I turned, Ava stood near the bar, holding her phone, pretending to look innocent. My mom was sipping champagne, pretending not to notice. I wanted to scream, but something inside me, something calm, sharp, and strong, took over instead. I walked to the microphone, smiled at the guests and said, "Looks like there's been a little confusion today. But don't worry, this wedding isn't going anywhere, because they didn't know. I hadn't used one credit card. I'd paid everything in full, in cash, days ago." I turned toward Ava and smiled. Nice try. The look on her face was priceless. Pure panic. But what happened next would humiliate them far more than I ever imagined. As the music returned and guests began whispering, I stepped up to the mic again. My hands were steady now, my voice calm but cold. "Since everyone's here, there's something I need to say before we continue." The garden went silent. Even the band stopped. My mom's fake smile froze, her glass halfway to her lips. Ava crossed her arms, whispering to Dad. Here comes her dramatic speech. I took a deep breath. 2 months ago, my parents canceled my wedding because, and I quote, "We're not funding this circus." Gasps rippled through the crowd. They said I'd embarrass the family. They said love doesn't pay the bills. But what they didn't know was that I've been working quietly, building something they never believed I could. I turned to the projector screen behind me and clicked play. The screen lit up with a video montage of me designing, packing, and shipping orders from my small apartment. My logo appeared next, Grace and Bloom, my online jewelry brand that had gone viral 6 months ago. Guests murmured in shock as screenshots of my website flashed across the screen. Thousands of orders, celebrity endorsements, features in magazines. My mom's face went pale. My dad's mouth actually dropped open. "Ava?" She looked like she'd just swallowed poison, I smiled. "So no, Mom, you didn't fund this wedding, I did. Every flower, every plate, every light you see here, paid for by the failure you mocked." The crowd erupted in applause. Even Daniel's parents stood, clapping proudly. I glanced at my mom. Her eyes glistened, not with pride, but humiliation. She tried to speak, but I wasn't done. I walked closer and said softly enough for only her to hear, "You called it a circus, Mom. I just turned it into a show everyone will remember." For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say, but before I could take another breath of relief, a man in a black suit approached me with a small envelope, and what was inside nearly stopped my heart again. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a legal notice. I looked up at the man and asked, "What is this?" He replied softly, "Ma'am, your sister filed a claim against your business for trademark infringement." "She says she owns the name Grace and Bloom." The crowd gasped again. Ava smirked from her seat, her voice slicing through the silence. "You didn't think I'd let you steal my spotlight again, did you?" My mom's lips curled into a proud grin, finally breaking her silence. "Actions have consequences, Grace. Maybe next time you'll learn to stay humble." For a second, it felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. Cameras were flashing, whispers filled the air. The same humiliation I had worked years to escape was suddenly flooding back. But then something inside me shifted. I wasn't the weak Grace they used to mock anymore. I turned toward Ava, my voice steady. You're right. Actions do have consequences. I looked at the lawyer, then at the guests. Can you please read the rest of that letter out loud? He nodded and began reading. This document confirms that Grace Harper is the sole owner and founder of Grace and Bloom, officially trademarked and registered 6 months prior under her name. Any false claim of ownership is subject to legal penalties. The garden went dead silent. Ava's face turned ghost white. She lunged toward the lawyer, shouting, "That can't be right!" She stole it from me. But the lawyer calmly handed me the official registration papers, signed and dated. I smiled and said, "Funny, Ava. You should have checked the paperwork before trying to ruin me again." Laughter spread through the crowd. Daniel wrapped his arm around me as guests started clapping, cheering even louder than before. My mom's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble. I stepped closer to her and said quietly, "You called my wedding a circus, Mom, but the only clowns here are the ones who tried to stop me." She looked away, speechless, her pride finally breaking. And as I walked down the aisle with Daniel, the sunset glowing over the garden, I realized something powerful. I didn't need my family's approval anymore. I had built everything they said I couldn't. That night, as the lights sparkled and music filled the air, guests kept repeating one thing over and over. She didn't just get married, she made history. And for the first time in my life, I smiled without fear. Because this time I didn't just say I do, I proved I could.